A police officer used unjust force against a woman, unaware of her true identity, and soon regretted his actions deeply. Now, we will share this gripping story, full of the fight for justice and unexpected twists. It was a blistering summer day in the bustling town of San Marcos, a growing community nestled in the rolling hills of Central California. Officer Nathan Caldwell patrolled the palm-lined streets, his squad car humming along familiar routes. San Marcos was transforming. More Latino families were putting down roots, opening taquerias, and revitalizing neighborhoods. To Caldwell, a man whose worldview was shaped by decades of unchallenged prejudice, this change felt like an invasion. Each new storefront with Spanish signage deepened his resentment, fueling his belief that the town was slipping from his grasp. As Caldwell cruised past a chic wine bar on Oak Avenue, he noticed a Latina woman pulling into a parking spot out front. She drove a glossy black sedan, and her attire, a sharp navy pantsuit, screamed wealth and confidence. To Caldwell, she was an anomaly. What's she doing in a place like this? He thought, his biases kicking into overdrive. Certain she was up to no good, he flicked on his lights and pulled up behind her, tires crunching on the pavement. The woman, oblivious to the trouble brewing, stepped out to pick up a to-go order. Caldwell strode toward her, his face set in a scowl. "License and registration," he demanded, his tone clipped and hostile. She turned, her dark eyes meeting his with a calm that threw him off. "Is something wrong, officer?" she asked, handing over her documents with a steady hand. "You're parked in a no-parking zone?" Caldwell lied, though the spot was clearly designated for customers. "And you're acting suspicious." The woman arched an eyebrow, her expression one of quiet disbelief. "I'm just grabbing my order. I don't see how that's suspicious." Her measured response grated on Caldwell. He saw her poise as arrogance, a direct challenge to his authority. Glaring at her car, then back at her, he pressed harder. "Where'd you get a car like that? What's your job? You don't belong around here." "I'm not obligated to answer those questions," she replied, her voice even but firm. "If I've violated a law, please tell me what it is." Her refusal to buckle infuriated Caldwell. He was accustomed to people shrinking under his pressure, but this woman held her ground, unshaken. Stepping closer, he seized her arm. "Turn around. You're under arrest," he snapped, his grip tight. A crowd began to form, drawn by the flashing lights and raised voices. Phones emerged, recording the unfolding scene. The woman didn't resist, but her composure seemed to mock Caldwell's authority. "You're making a serious mistake, officer," she said softly. "You'll find out soon enough." Her words only stoked his anger. He shoved her against her car, pulling out his cuffs, convinced he was in control. The crowd swelled, and whispers turned to shouts. Some locals recognized the woman but hesitated to step in, intimidated by Caldwell's aggression. "Leave her alone," a bystander called. "What's she done?" Caldwell ignored them, his focus locked on his target. The woman, now handcuffed and pressed against the sedan's hood, remained remarkably calm. "You're wrong about this," she said, her voice steady despite the rough treatment. "You know I'm not a criminal." Her defiance pushed Caldwell further. "You think you're untouchable with your fancy suit and car?" he hissed, leaning in close. "You're nothing special." The crowd's outrage grew louder, phones capturing every angle. Within minutes, the videos hit social media, spreading across local and regional platforms. Hashtags like #SanMarcosInjustice began trending, with users decrying yet another case of police misconduct. A few in the crowd shouted, "We know her. She's no criminal." But Caldwell, drunk on his own authority, brushed them off. When the woman tried to turn and speak, he pushed her back sharply. "Move again, and I'll charge you with resisting," he threatened, his voice venomous. The tension in the air was palpable, but she glanced at the crowd and said, "Please, everyone, stay calm. It'll be okay." Her restraint only inflamed the onlookers' anger, and some began dialing local news outlets. Reporters arrived, their cameras rolling as the scene escalated. Then, Another police cruiser pulled up. Captain Maria Delgado, a veteran officer respected for her integrity, stepped out. Her sharp eyes took in the chaos, handcuffs, a furious crowd, and Caldwell's belligerence. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her gaze flicking to the woman. Caught her acting suspiciously. "She disobeyed orders," Caldwell said, his tone smug, unaware of the storm about to break. Delgado's expression shifted as she recognized the woman. The crowd hushed, sensing a turning point. Delgado approached Caldwell, her voice low and steely. "Do you have any idea who you've arrested?" Caldwell scoffed, stepping back. "What's it matter? Just another Latina who thinks she's above the rules." Delgado's jaw tightened, her patience thinning. "You've made a catastrophic mistake, Nathan. This is Judge Isabella Morales, a federal appeals court judge." The words struck Caldwell like a thunderbolt. His face went ashen, his bravado crumbling. "A judge?" he muttered, his voice barely audible. The weight of his error crashed down. He hadn't just targeted a random woman. He'd assaulted a federal judge. His routine power trip had spiraled into a career-ending disaster. Delgado moved swiftly, removing the handcuffs with care. The crowd murmured, their phones still recording. "I'm so sorry, Your Honor," Delgado said, her voice heavy with regret. "This was an egregious error." Morales adjusted her blazer, her dignity intact despite the ordeal. "An error?" she said, her tone calm but piercing. "This was no accident. This was prejudice and abuse of power. I wasn't given a chance to explain myself." The crowd roared in agreement, some clapping, others chanting her name. Caldwell tried to speak, but Delgado cut him off with a sharp gesture. "You've crossed a line, Nathan," she said, her voice cold. "This is unforgivable." Reporters surged forward, microphones extended. Morales faced them with unshakable resolve. "I am Judge Isabella Morales," she declared, her voice carrying across the street. "This incident exposes the systemic biases that plague our institutions. I will not let it go unaddressed." Her words resonated, sparking cheers from the crowd and amplifying the social media frenzy. Caldwell stood paralyzed, the reality of his actions sinking in. His career was unraveling before his eyes. The videos were now national news, shared by influencers and activists alike. By nightfall, San Marcos was at the heart of a firestorm, with protests forming outside the police station. The next day, the town was ablaze with outrage. The footage of Judge Morales's arrest dominated headlines, fueling demands for accountability. The San Marcos Police Department faced a deluge of criticism, with civil rights groups calling for sweeping reforms. Captain Delgado launched an immediate investigation, suspending Caldwell pending a full review. But the public's anger was unrelenting. Marches filled the streets, and petitions circulated online. Morales seized the moment, granting interviews to major networks. She spoke with clarity and conviction, detailing how prejudice infected law enforcement, even in a progressive town like San Marcos. "This isn't about one officer's actions," she said on a primetime broadcast. "It's about a system that allows these injustices to persist. We must dismantle it, from training to oversight, to ensure no one else endures what I did." Her words struck a chord, turning her into a national symbol of resistance. The pressure forced San Marcos's leaders to act. Caldwell was charged with abuse of power and civil rights violations. His name became radioactive, no department would hire him, and the media painted him as a cautionary tale of unchecked bigotry. His life in San Marcos collapsed, his reputation irreparably tarnished. But the story didn't end with Caldwell's fall. Morales's advocacy, backed by community organizers and national activists, drove tangible change. The San Marcos Police Department implemented mandatory bias training, revised use of force policies, and established a civilian oversight board. Neighboring towns followed suit, inspired by the town's transformation. The story's crescendo came when Morales addressed a national summit on justice reform. Her speech, live-streamed to millions, was a call to action. "We will not tolerate more officers like Nathan Caldwell," she said, her voice ringing with authority. We will fight until every person, regardless of their heritage, is treated with respect and fairness. The time for change is now. The audience erupted in applause, her words echoing across the country. Caldwell, meanwhile, faded into obscurity, jobless, ostracized, and a symbol of the prejudice he'd embodied. His downfall was a stark reminder of the consequences of abusing power. Judge Isabella Morales emerged as a towering figure in the fight for equality. What began as a single act of injustice on a sunlit street in San Marcos became a movement, proving that one woman's courage could spark a revolution. Her story inspired countless others to demand justice, ensuring that the ripples of change would be felt for generations.